everybody, and welcome back to the Flat Earth Podcast. I'm your co-host, Curious Jay, alongside me, Dave from deep inside the rabbit hole, once again for another hour or so of your Flat Earth audio fix of the week. Before I even ask how Dave's doing this week, as I always do, I'd like to send out our thoughts, prayers, and condolences to all of those who have lost their vision, gone blind, had retina damage during this past Monday's eclipse. Now that depressing note's out of the way, Dave, how are you doing, man?
Hold on. Oops, where's my microphone? There it is. Hey.
Oh, no. Is your vision, has it disappeared as well?
No.
Well, then tell us what happened with the eclipse. Did you stare at the sun?
Doing great. If I had gone in, I'm just going to jump forward here. If I had gone in for LASIK surgery, I would be satisfied today with the results. My vision is better, sharper. I've been sleeping amazingly well ever since the eclipse. It is, I think, fundamentally changed my life. And I stared at the eclipse for up to 2 minutes at a time. There was a couple times where I was staring at it and it started to flicker. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, you know, the fear, all of that fear that they've been putting out everywhere. I was like, maybe I should just look away for a little bit. And I would look away. But then I found out that other people that were doing it too were seeing the same flickering.
They were seeing flickering. I've seen heard multiple reports of that.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was an amazing experience. I have not worn my reading glasses once since the eclipse. I was driving all over long distances the other day, and I'm looking around. I'm like, everything looks different. Everything was clear. I could read the smallest type. Amazing. But I have to say that I prepared for this because I do sun gazing, not a ton, but I do enough where I could stare at the sun, you know, between 4 and 5 o'clock for an hour. And I guess that's a lot because I remember when I started, it was only 5 or 10 seconds closer to sunset. It's kind of like going to the gym for the first time and just doing an advanced workout. You could hurt yourself.
Well, or like I say, it's like the memory muscle or cardio muscle, and the fact that if you haven't ran in several years and I say, come on, Dave, let's go run the 10K together, you're not going to make it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But if you've run 2-3K a day and I say, hey, let's go run the 10K, you're fine, right? Same thing. And to your point, I was actually jealous of you this past Monday because I think I mentioned before on last week's show, I had to work during the eclipse, but we did get to take a break, and everybody that was working all went outside and enjoyed the eclipse. We were not in the path of totality, unfortunately. We were in an area where we got, 70, 80% or whatever the percentage was. But I looked through some eclipse glasses to check it out. But for the most part, most of my viewing of the eclipse was, I didn't even use my sunglasses. I would hold my hand above my eyebrows and get the sun right above where my hand was blocking it. And then I would move my hand and squint my eyes, and I would look at it with the naked eye. And I was not able to do it for more than a few seconds at a time. And I was thinking, Dave's been sun gazing. He's in shape, damn it. I bet he's looking at it for like 2 minutes.
It takes about, 10 seconds, maybe a little less, for your eyes to adjust. And all of a sudden you can see it. It's relaxing. I didn't need to squint. Maybe I squinted a little bit when it was really bright, but it was truly an amazing experience. And I have to equate it, and 90% of the people, when I say 90, that's an interesting number, won't be able to relate to this, but it's like I've done ayahuasca. Some of you that don't know what that is, look into it, with a shaman. And it's a teaching medicine down from that they use in the Amazon. And the ayahuasca experience itself is pretty interesting, but it's the days and weeks after that the teachings really hit you. And I feel like I still feel like it today, which is 3 or 4 days later, that I am getting more information from it. I've been having vivid dreams. I've been having very clear thoughts, inspirational thoughts. I just feel like a new like an awakening, a mini awakening, if that's a good way to put it, has happened.
That's a great way to put it. And you're not the only person who has explained it that way, which is what is so interesting. I've actually had the ayahuasca experience on my to-do list for quite a while. So I'm hoping to catch up with you in one of these days, make a trip down there and do it down there near the Amazon.
There was two reasons I knew that staring at the eclipse wasn't going to hurt my eyes. Is I did it as a kid in the 70s. Why, I think I told the story about when my father was making this smoked glass in the pinhole and everyone's waiting their turn. And I'm standing behind everybody just staring at it. And I'm the only one that really didn't need glasses until, a few years ago. And then the other main reason is the amount of media scare that they've been pumping out. Don't look at the eclipse. Don't look at the eclipse. You'll go blind. Every article. And to me, that just tells me that there's a reason to look at the eclipse.
Yeah, it was such a dead giveaway. I mean, the days leading up were, it was like fear porn at its finest, man. Unbelievable.
Let me tell you how much fear they put into people. A grown woman was down there at the beach where we were, and she goes, I've got an idea. And she puts her regular mirrored sunglasses on the ground. And then with her iPhone, she's trying to take a picture of the sun reflecting in her sunglasses, but she's afraid to look directly at the sunglasses because a beam of light might go in her eye and blind her. Meanwhile, I'm sitting 10 feet from her, staring at the sun with my naked eyes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Monday evening, I think it was. I took a flight Monday evening, and then I was in an Uber car with this lady. She was a very nice lady driving, and I brought up the eclipse deal because she was in an area that when I landed in the plane, I was actually in an area closer to where the totality was. So I said, did you go out and do the eclipse? No, we didn't do it. And the more we got to talking about it, the fear had gotten her and her husband stayed inside. They didn't even want to go outside.
This woman that was trying to do it, and I said to her, it's not going to hurt your eyes. I said, look, we've been staring at it for over an hour. And she's like, I can't look. And people were afraid to look in the corner of their eye, just glance up at it for a second. And it was truly the mind programming. That's right up there with don't question the shape of the earth.
Yeah, it sure is. They were so scared of that. And speaking of the eclipse, you put out a very interesting video that I thought was extremely well done that summarizes kind of like our thoughts prior to the eclipse on the projected sun with the moon / not moon passing in front of it. What is the title of that? Is it Projected Sun, maybe?
Our Projected Sun. I did two of them, a follow-up one. And if you get to the second one first, it tells you to watch the first one before you watch it. But it's not a new concept. No. And it fits in with a lot of models. It fits in. If you think it's the moon that's blocking the sun, well, this explains how we don't see the moon. If you think it's Rahu or Ketu, well, this explains how we don't see them. It could be any of that, or it could be something else. But the way we see the sun, in my belief, is that it is projected from I'll say another realm or a fourth dimension into our 3D world as a 3D projection. My experiment was just a 2D experiment because I live in a 3D world where I projected it on the screen of the sky, which I called my paper towel sky. And it perfectly shows how you will never see whatever it is eclipsing the sun approaching or leaving the face of the sun.
It does. And for those who haven't seen the video and may have trouble understanding, I guess, the explanation, just imagine laying on your back in a room and someone next to you shines, we turn the lights off and someone shines a flashlight up at the ceiling, right? And so it makes a spotlight on the ceiling. Well, the equivalent of, I guess, what Dave's video is demonstrating is that the sun may indeed not be the light source itself, but a projection from a light source. So imagine laying up in your room, seeing that light up there and thinking that that's the actual light itself. But of course, in that scenario, we know that it's not. It's the flashlight on the side.
Right. But that's you can do it from the reverse. If you had a sheer sheet above you and the light, you're seeing a projection of the light onto the sheet. And my point is, in my second video, There's lots of anomalies that people have when they shoot the sun. Sometimes it looks like there's another smaller sun or planet right next to the sun. And a lot of people say, well, that's just a lens flare. Lots of them are lens flares, but lens flares move wildly as you move the camera. And sometimes there's one that's right next to the sun that's locked in position to the sun. And people, argue about that endlessly. Well, during the eclipse, that one that's locked to the sun was eclipsed also. Mm-hmm. So I came up, it's not an original idea, but I thought if that is what is projecting, and we're, the sun itself is so bright, we can't see that projection. So if you're looking at a sheer sheet and there's an image being projected on it, a movie, let's say you're projecting a movie onto a sheet and you're on the far side of the sheet watching the movie. If you angle right, you could see through the sheet and see the lens of the projector. You can see that bright light through the sheet. And that's what I demonstrated in my video.
Yeah. And it was really good. And, I've been saying for a while, like the fact that we can't see the moon before and afterwards, it's so fishy. And so I was on the verge of just saying, look, it ain't the moon. It ain't the moon. But I wanted to also bring to your attention the photos that Carly Sunshine had taken and posted, where when you zoom into the side of that object blocking the sun, it looks like what may appear to be craters in there. What did you see that, and what did you think?
I did. She adjusted the levels a little bit, so when you zoom in close, you can see on the edge, on the rim of whatever it is that's occulting the sun, what appear to be craters. And I think they did a little effort and kind of lined them up and think they might have a match to craters.
Did they get a match? Wow.
I'm not exactly sure how accurate that is because I didn't see it myself. But if whatever it is that's blocking the sun has, for lack of a better word, craters, has those features on it, you could see them along the edge, just as you're getting a little bit of the profile.
Right.
It's possible.
Side view.
Yeah. Also, it could be semi-transparent, which is projecting that image forward. There's a lot of ways to look at it. Now, the question is, does that prove it's the moon? Or is there something else, Rahu or Ketu, or something else that surrounds the moon that has those same features? Mm-hmm. Crow 777, who I really, really appreciate his research. He has been hinting at the idea that the sun, when it goes into its new phase, is exactly that. It becomes a new sun. And then when the sun reappears, it's called a young sun. And as it reappears, it is translucent and it becomes more opaque as it progresses through its cycle. Very, very interesting stuff.
It is. It's very interesting. Did you see the NASA footage of the eclipse?
You mean the cartoons?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
How can NASA not film in 4K when other people are? People got amazing footage, and a lot of that footage has these anomalies that look like the projector. In my book, I'm sure there's going to be more coming out, and I'll have to make another video.
Yeah, you definitely need to compare the two. I was able to take a picture with my phone through eclipse glasses, and mine is almost, I would say, just a hair better than the NASA footage.
Yeah, but when you look through eclipse glasses, you are blocking out everything that matters.
That's right. Everything. You're blocking out the good stuff.
You're getting a silhouette of what's up there, and you're missing all of the detail, all of the benefits. And I think that's why they really don't want us looking at the eclipse for two reasons. One, because of the benefits to you health-wise. And two, because it's the only time where the sun gets dull enough where you can see what's behind it.
Exactly, yeah. I think the health reasons, I'm glad to have you on here, Dave, to give us the firsthand account, because I've actually read up a lot on sun gazing, or what some call sun eating, for the last year or so. And I have heard people mention the benefits that come along with it. So I'm glad you're on here to actually give us a firsthand, because I kind of never know what to think when I read someone else's list of benefits. You know what I mean?
We know that the sun gives you vitamin D, and vitamin D is the key to being healthy. And that's why people in the north get sick in the winter, because they're not getting enough vitamin D. And, the government, NASA, whatever the powers that be, tell us, don't go out in the sun. And if you do, put these toxic chemicals on your skin. so you can get cancer, essentially is what they're saying. And that's the thing. The sun is health. You can burn yourself if you too much of anything, you could hurt yourself. But sunscreen blocks the sun, and sunscreen causes cancer. I said it. There you go. There go all of our sponsors.
Yeah, right. So we mentioned, I think on our second and fourth show, maybe it was, or the Missouri gravity low.
Yeah, that line that goes strangely from Washington down to the southeast, which is a fault line, if you will, in the United States, which happens to match
the path of the eclipse. That's right.
Right.
So I think it was last night I started looking around. I just wanted to look more into that. I promised myself that I would go back and research that more. It turns out it's a large fault line, right? In fact, it's a 1,700-mile crack across America is what they call it. And again, it's right there in the path of the solar eclipse. Well, I'm going to send over this image and we can post this up on our Facebook page so people can check this out, Dave. But I found a map when I was looking at the fault line maps. I found a map that indicated the second largest crack through America. And this is over a little bit on the East Coast, and it's represented by a different line on the same map that they represent the Missouri gravity low. And this one is part of the New Madrid fault line. And what do you know? It matches up almost exactly the path of totality of the 2024 eclipse. And my mind was blown. It was like 2 a.m. I was like, oh my God. I sat up out of bed. I was like, what does that mean? I don't know. But I find that to be the most unbelievable coincidence ever. I mean, what are the odds of that, Dave?
The odds are 100% or 0, depending on how you look at it.
Well, true. Yeah. I mean, in the heliocentric model, though, if they say that the fault lines are due to plate tectonics and things like that, and in no way related to our sun, moon, earth system. I mean, if they're not related, and the heliocentric model, if somebody calculated the chances of any 1,700-mile stretch on Earth getting a solar eclipse, right? And then it matching up to a fault line, the largest one in America, and then and then to throw on top of that to do it again. It's like winning the lottery twice.
It's ridiculous. We live in an energetic, electric, magnetic construct. The sun and the moon are, electric and dielectric system connected to the earth.
Yep.
These energy lines, are all tied together.
Yeah, there's something to it, and we're putting it out there because we want people to look into this. Those of you who've got a lot of time on your hands and want to dig into some deep stuff, look up the Missouri gravity low line, look up the New Madrid fault lines, look up fault lines, and really pay attention to that. And what we'll do is, like I say, on the Facebook page, we'll post a picture of this map with the 2 fault lines and a picture of the 17 and 24 eclipses so that you can see the similarities, I'll just call it. And you know what's really weird, Dave? I mean, this goes into conspiracy stuff, but this is really weird. But the area where the 2 intersect.
Where is that?
It's called, it's a town in, where is it? Let me get the right, Carbondale. Okay, so it's the town of Carbondale, Illinois. Do you know what Carbondale since its inception has been called?
No.
Little Egypt.
Really?
Yeah. I have no idea what all this means, but I'm putting it out there because, it's what I've stumbled upon or what I've seen. And seriously, my mind was blown last night at 2 a.m.
My mind has been blown every single day since the eclipse.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of the eclipse again, did Bob, have you heard, did they get the balloon footage back?
Bob from Glowbusters?
Yes, from Glowbusters.
All I heard was that he got some great footage, but I haven't seen anything yet. He's probably holding it out for the show this week. Takes a little time it's a lot of footage to edit it down and get the good stuff.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that footage. If you're not listening to Glowbusters or watching Glowbusters on YouTube, Glowbusters channel, it's a great show every Sunday. And great job you did filling in this week as well, Dave.
Yeah, I'm relaxing, enjoying myself with Paige. We're listening to Glowbusters, and all of a sudden the Skype rings, and like, hey, Jaren's like, no one else is here, and my first guest is gone, so now I'm on, and then 10 seconds later, he's gone, and I'm hosting the show with technical difficulties. It was kind of funny.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
And then Before we go to break and have a guest on shortly, I'd like to read an email that came in from Kevin, the gym teacher that was on our episode 3. I'd love to read it, Dave, real quick. You know what this is about, because I think it's worth it. Everyone should hear this.
Go for it.
So today I was having a conversation with my downstairs neighbor, Mabel. She's a very nice woman. I'd say she's probably around 60 years old. She was born and raised in Antigua. Earlier today, I gave her a ride to the post office, and I figured I might bring up the subject of flat Earth. So I said to her, Mabel, do you read the Bible? She said, of course I do. So then I said to her, have you ever seen references in the Bible that talk about the firmament and how the earth is fixed and immovable? And she said, yes, of course. So then I said, then you know that means the earth is flat. And she said, well, of course the earth is flat. And here I was ready to do battle with her when she has known her entire life that the earth is flat. So here's the twist. She told me that when she was growing up in Antigua, she learned geography under the British system because Antigua was run by Britain. That is what she was taught in school, that the earth was flat. She knew all about the flat earth. And when I was explaining to her that 99% of the people in the world now believe that we live on a spinning globe, she laughed and thought that was ridiculous. She then talked about her son, Anthony, who I would say is in his 30s. He also grew up in Antigua, and she told me that he was taught when he went to school that the earth was a globe. But he knows that the earth is flat because he, quote unquote, figured it out for himself. Isn't that amazing that when Mabel was a child growing up in Antigua, she was taught that the earth was flat? And then just one generation later, by the time her son was going to school, they were being taught something else. That came from Kevin, and I thought that was an amazing message to put out there. And it made me, my reaction right away was, all right, we got to get a hold of some 50-year-old textbooks from Antigua.
Yeah. How do they dumb the population down? All that comes to my head is, I remember when there was a time where they didn't put fluoride in our water. I remember when we didn't have GMOs. Yeah. I remember when we didn't have vaccinations. And I blame all of these things for dumbing down the public, along with the nonsense on the news and the school curriculum. It's insane how everyone here, everyone that's listening to the show, that's done a little research and stopped listening to the mainstream scientism, knows the earth is flat and knows how absolutely and utterly ridiculous the ball model is. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, other people that have not done the research, that have just been programmed their whole life, thinks what I said is crazy.
Right. I know. It is absurd. It really is. I find it more and more comparable to the way I feel about 9/11, in the fact that I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the official story that's ridiculous. You know what I mean?
It's just utter
when you look at the evidence, when you look at what happened and the evidence and what we were told, the official story is wildly impossible.
What's more ridiculous, the official story of 9/11 or the spinning ball Earth?
Well, that's a tough race right there. I mean,
that's equivalent to saying, what's more real, a polka dotted unicorn wearing a tuxedo or whatever?
Yeah, it is. It's changed the way I think, and the globe has become just as silly, perhaps more ridiculous than the official story of 9/11. And before we go to break, I want to make a quick plea out to everyone. I got on iTunes the other day to check out our podcast listings. And one thing I noticed, we've never asked anyone to do this, Dave. We've never said, hey, go on iTunes and drop a review. But I'd like to do that and ask everyone who does appreciate the podcast and enjoy the podcast, if you get it on iTunes, if that's where you download it from, leave us a review on there. Because the Globers, the trolls, who I don't even think have ever listened to the show, they found it. And so when you look at the last few reviews, it's all the globe heads, with their nonsense.
I have not even looked at the reviews. That is so sad. So yes, please leave us a review and drown out the globies.
All right, so we'll take a quick break. When we come back, got a guest on the line with us. Stick around. More from the Flat Earth Podcast coming up.
Following announcement has been paid for by
the Flat Earth Podcast.
You want to leave a digital voicemail for us? Head over to theflatearthpodcast.com and click on the blue link that reads, "Got a question? Send us a message."
You can do it from your iPhone or from your computer. First time you do it on your cellular phone, you'll have to download a little app. But after that, you can leave us all kinds of messages. If you want to be anonymous, you can make up a name, make up an email address. We don't care. We just want to hear what you have to say.
We'll do our best to play or answer these questions and comments on future episodes right here on the Flat Earth Podcast. Download the SpeakPipe app and check us out at theflatearthpodcast.com.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
If you're watching this audio on YouTube right now and you're not familiar with the world of podcasting, there's a far better way to listen to the Flat Earth Podcast each and every week.
Think of it like your TiVo or your DVR is to your television. You subscribe to whatever show that you like. Whenever a new episode comes out, it records it, downloads it, and notifies you that there's a new episode for easy listening anywhere. Another great feature on most podcast players is you could speed up if you want to hear stuff even faster, or more importantly, it has a jump back and jump forward 30 seconds so you could skip annoying announcements like this.
We're on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and so many more. If we're not on your favorite podcast app, send us a message and let us know to make sure we will be.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
All right, back here on the Flat Earth Podcast. And Dave, got a surprise guest for you this week. So I know how frustrated you were with your appearance on the Raven Effect podcast, right?
Yes.
And I think I even mentioned last week that I don't know Raven personally, but we have mutual friends. So I decided to call up a mutual friend. This guy has been in every wrestling organization there is, folks, from WWE, WCW, ECW, TNA, and everything in between. He's a good friend of mine, and now he's actually the current trainer, or conditioning trainer, I should say, for Colby Covington, the MMA fighter. He is also a co-host of the Conspiracy Horseman podcast, which was the one that I appeared on just a few days ago. Stevie Richards, ladies and gentlemen, is here. Stevie, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, and good to talk to you, Curious Jay, after the great discussion. It was 2 hours. Our last episode of the Conspiracy Horseman was really, really great. One of our most downloaded episodes already, and it's really gonna show that this subject, or just conspiracies in general, it should be discussed.
Yeah, welcome, Stevie, and that really was a great show. I listened to it twice.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think, well, you know what's funny about that is I think Stevie told me, I think he's listened to the Raven Effect show that you were on, Dave, a couple times as well, right, Steve?
Yeah, I just wanted to listen to it because, you guys had recapped it, and I went back and listened to it a second time because I wanted to figure out where the abrupt turn, because I noticed it too. I was like, wow, this is going to be a really incredible episode. I thought the whole episode was going to be dedicated to that. So it really did kind of even with that, especially with that expectation, I was like, whoa, what happened? It was kind of like just the brakes were just put on out of nowhere in the way I listened to it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It when you're having your world shattered under your feet, sometimes it's better just to turn away and say, no, send me back.
Well, it was incredible. It was incredible, too, because Raven and we started discussing conspiracy. He never knew I was into, and I hate to say conspiracy theories because, in my opinion, the official stories are usually the real conspiracy theory. But just that open thought, and he's a member of MAD today. He's an incredibly intelligent person. So the spirit of discussion or the spirit of debate, which will be a theme that I'll keep reverting back to as we discuss this subject, I thought he'd be all for it. And also he'd be out ahead of a mainstream personality really embracing the discussion on his podcast. So it was really weird that all of a sudden he shut down with one of the easiest conspiracy theories to embrace, and that was the Moon-Landing Hoax, I should say.
Was it he that asked you, Dave?
We got on we were talking about the space shuttle, and I said, you realize we didn't go to the moon? He goes, of course we went to the moon. And I just was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh.
And when he said, of course we did, when he first said it, I thought he was joking. And then when I realized he was serious, I was like, oh no, wait, how? I could not believe that
I understand how. I understand how, because I was one of those guys. I was a flat earther. I've told this a million times before I realized NASA was a joke. And the only reason is because I never looked into it. I just trust men, what people tell us, and I never looked into it. I was, I heard about the moon hoax, and I was led down a gating path, and I was like, that's nonsense, and I never looked into it. But anyone that takes I don't know, 5 minutes to look into it, you realize it's all nonsense.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask Stevie something because I remember Stevie was working on another show. This was about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, like maybe April of 16. And I remember Stevie and another friend, Robert, asked me to come on this show that they were doing and talk about the flat earth. And at that point, I don't think your flat earth, I don't think you guys knew much about it. But do you remember that, Stevie? And what was it that made you, like, at what point did you say, oh, okay, maybe there is something to look into here?
Well, most of the way is just the way I embrace technology, fitness, or anything else. If it's something I'm not familiar with or something I don't know, I want to reach out to people that have researched more, that do know more, and talk to them. And then from that point, whether I believe it or not, do my own research after that, and then maybe have multiple discussions like we've had over the past year or two. We were connected by kind of like by happenstance or destiny or whatever, you know, and it was just kind of weird. It was based on the missing 411. Robert and I had just discussed it on the podcast, and you had showed up and you literally had the book laying on top of your backpack or your messenger bag. And that's what started us talking about stuff like this. So it's really just wanting to know, thirst for knowledge, whether or not I hate when these people say, well, I'm into the 9/11 conspiracy, but the flat earth conspiracy or this other one is a big waste of my time. Well, how do you know if you haven't gone all the way through the entire research process or paid attention to it for any length of time? You don't know. That's really closed-minded. And like I said, that's something that I try my best not to be.
In defense of people that do that, I understand it. We all did it.
I did it first. At first, I did. You're right.
But my favorite line now is condemnation without investigation is the admission of your indoctrination.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I think, just like we discussed on the show, about lazy science, at best, lazy science, I really do think lazy education, like I want to sit back and look at this TV and have everybody tell me exactly the way the world works. And it just festers and grows from there. And that's indoctrination basically to a T today.
Yep. And it's kind of like you hear this phrase uttered in politics sometimes, but, it's like either he or she in charge was incompetent or they're lying, whether it's the Hillary email scandal or anything else. Either she's incompetent or she's dishonest. I look at the education system that way as well. When it comes to this science stuff, it's like, if they're not being straight up deceptive, then they're idiots. And I don't think it's the idiots. I think it's deceptive in this case.
Well, you also have the fact that if they're idiots and you're smarter than them, then how dumb are you to, well, we can go on a whole other conspiracy about voting and stuff and who gets, quote, elected. But if you're voting for these people, then what's that make you? Maybe that's the part of the insecurity that people don't want to realize. I know there's a lot of things I'm dumb about. There's a lot of things I'm stupid about. There's a lot of things that I have a lot to learn about. And even the things I know, I still have a lifetime to learn. The technology, the fitness, this stuff, everything. I know I'm going to be researching and doing this stuff for the rest of my life. Maybe that's a little intimidating to people. It sounds like an awful lot of work.
Yeah, but I think Dave and I completely understand.
I love it. I love to know that I'm never going to be content. I'm never going to be placated in any way, form, or fashion throughout my life. It's almost like an awakening. Whether or not I end up believing in flat Earth or these other things that I research or anything, the journey to know that stuff is what makes me open to listen and to come on this show and talk to you guys.
Yeah, I don't think saying that you'll never be fulfilled, because I feel very fulfilled. What I know is I'll never be just thinking I've discovered it all, like that famous line.
We'll never have all the answers.
There's nothing more to explore, Truman. It's all been explored. It's all been discovered. It's amazing how much there is to learn, and it's exciting, and it's exhilarating.
Yeah, I was mainly speaking of my body dysmorphia with working out. That's what I meant. But I'll never be satisfied.
I'm not sure how much Dave knows about the wrestling business, but Stevie, I think I know the answer to this. But why is it that so many wrestlers are into the conspiracy theory stuff?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you are kind of, so, without cursing, mind effed in so many different ways in wrestling. And there's so many he says, she says, and there's essentially a lot of conspiracies in wrestling because someone will tell you to your face that they think you're great and blah, blah, blah. But every action that they do will show that they think you're not, or they don't think anything of you. And also it's always these different, I used to call WWE Al-Qaeda Entertainment because there were so many sleeper cells because nobody knew what was going on. And I'm joking, but I'm not, because it was always these things that happened. I remember one time I went to Vince McMahon and I was talking about my place in the company and opportunity, and really went to him for advice on where he thinks I should go, or if I should be released, or what the next step should be. And he's like, I have no idea. I'll have to look into that. And I was like, who do you have to ask? You own the company.
You're the owner.
But that's the kind of, I feel like that's the kind of word salad, as Dave would say. I love that term. It's just, there's just talking words, doesn't mean anything. And it really is just the fact of, if I just keep saying this, people will believe it, which I think translates over into, plus it's sort of, it's make believe. It's a manufactured world, and it's
Stevie,
not real. Yeah, go ahead.
I've got a question since you brought that up. So Vince said that he had to ask, right? Is that what you just said?
I'll have to look into it. Like,
I'll have to look into it. So it's in my book is Vince is just not a derogatory, but just a puppet that he is being controlled by somebody else. You know the famous scene at least in the conspiracy world where where I think it was Hulk Hogan and somebody else talking about taking down the Twin Towers, and basically they're telling the whole storyline was the crumbling of the Twin Towers. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we covered it in an episode on predictive programming.
So where did that narrative come from? Who inserted that? It wasn't Vince. I mean, but he was told this is what we're going to do, I'm guessing. Are you guys just handed narratives and you just have to play them out?
Back when I was there, I was there between the bridge from it just being really more of the Wild West, and then the writers came in and the scripts came in and stuff like that. I've seen both ends of it, the before and the after. I could believe that after a little bit more. Before, when I was there, and I started in '99, so it was after the Twin Towers promo and the Savage Hogan thing. I'm not sure. They might have been given bullet points to say, but I can't speak on that. And that's where a lot of times I try. It's fun to speculate, or it's fun to kind of connect the dots and stuff. But I really have to resist a lot going too far out there and putting the string with the pins on the corkboard type thing. I try to keep it, to mostly what people can identify. I think there's a lot of symbolism that Ben on the Conspiracy Horseman pointed out, a lot of symbolism in pro wrestling. And I was like, wow, there is a lot of satanic symbolism. There's a lot of like this crazy stuff, like right down to the WrestleMania set or the Mason stuff.
Or the John Cena Mason symbol, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've never noticed that. I worked for the company, so I guess I was just I can't speak that I wasn't looking for it. I can't speak that I was. So
yeah, I've been a follower, as Stevie knows, I don't know about Dave, but I've been a follower of that industry. I've been really close to that industry for a long, long time. And I am the same way, Stevie. I never looked. And until about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, if you would have asked me if Vince and the WWE or whatever was amongst the media groups that are under some sort of control, I would have said absolutely not. Vince runs his own thing. He's the outsider in the media world. He runs his deal. And then now that I guess, since looking into Flat Earth and looking more into the Freemasonry and everything and seeing the demolition clips with the Twin Towers, now I'm like, yeah, maybe they are. Maybe maybe they got their hands in the WWE too.
I think the WWE is a huge part of the programming of society, and it is completely put together for that purpose.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely could be in the last, 15, 20 years for sure, Dave. I think what Stevie was saying, what's interesting is, back in the 80s during when
Stevie was there, it was all real.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
when the guys who I got in the ring with, they couldn't work. That was pretty much it. Anyways, my simple thing was just go in there, work hard, hopefully make enough money to save up to retire and take care of my family and animals. You know, I had very, very pure intentions on being in there. I never got very far, but maybe that's the reason why I never got past the point where I was introduced to anything else that I had. I didn't have access to that stuff, and I thank God I did. I thank God I didn't. I didn't want to be a part of that.
So I want to fast forward again to when you and I first started, and Robert first started talking about the flat Earth. Do you remember any of the points that really got you to say, okay, I don't know if the smoke equals fire, but there's definitely some smoke here, and like you said, caused you to actually research it yourself?
Well, there's many points. I think that it was a tie. The initial two things that really just kind of smacked me in the face was the number one thing was the fact that NASA's images and the fact that, you know, even right down to everything, every show in space, every piece of media, every episode of Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson was all CGI. It was all just basically animated. Also, I love the shots of the Voyager and other things where they're taking a picture of Voyager in the shot with the planet. And I'm like, well, who's taking a picture? Like, what do they have up there taking a picture of the satellite? That was always very interesting to me. But the images thing is a clever play from NASA because they're not technically lying because it's not photos, it's images. The other thing was direct from Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's probably the most famous, I use quotation marks, the most famous scientist in the world, because I really do feel like he's just put out there like a Bill Nye type character just to kind of, you know, he's charismatic.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Those quotation marks take offense to
yes,
that.
well, until you find a different symbol I can use to detect sarcasm over an audio podcast, and we'll do that. But Tyson, you know, and him and Bill Nye are charismatic guys. They're technically actors. People claim they are actually, you know, just actors that are placed there. They have IMDb things, and they've kind of placed themselves in TV and movies. So that's kind of a gray area there. But the thing that's not a gray area for me is when he's sitting there, and I don't know what conference it was or whatever, but it's a famous clip where he's asked about Earth, and he says it's an oblate spheroid. I'm only paraphrasing him here. Oblate spheroid, chubby, pear-shaped, blah, blah, blah. So basically, he just debunked the globe Earth. He said it's not a globe. But then every NASA image connected to that statement, it has a perfect globe. So to me, like I use that connotation again, like it's either lazy science because that should have shook the whole education system. They should have took every globe out. They should have an oblate spheroid or a pear-shaped globe or something more accurate because science should be about accuracy. And if the most famous scientist, once again, I don't know what symbol to use, Dave, but I'm throwing my hands up. If he's saying that it's these two shapes, which is clearly not a sphere, a globe, then it's either that or the fact that they're just, you know, they're just lying right in plain sight. They're hiding it in plain sight in a way. And that always stuck with me that nobody ever challenged or followed up a question. And Jay, you've mentioned it too. He puts himself in positions where he never has to answer a follow-up question.
I know it. The most he's ever done as far as a back and forth situation goes is when he's done the Joe Rogan show, which he knows that Joe Rogan is coming at him on his side already.
Yeah, the Joe Rogan thing is interesting for people to research that because he was on the Man Cow show. That's a famous clip where he was just like, there's no way we went to the moon. And he brought up all these great points about the Moon-Landing Hoax and about NASA and these kinds of things. And I believe when he had Neil deGrasse Tyson on, one of the first things he says, I'm a moron, you're an expert, and everything I'm deferring to you. And it was just incredible. And then further down after that, which really put my antennas up, was how much they shut down Eddie Bravo on that famous Flat Earth clip for an hour, just making fun of him. And he's saying whatever. And they were literally, I would think, bullying him into just not being that way anymore. And he even said, oh, I'm crazy, I'm just having fun, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, it's dangerous. You can't. He was saying all these CIA, in my opinion, type things I'm going to go one step further and kind of jump in a little bit. He had a CIA guy on talking about how Oswald can make the shot in the JFK assassination. And he was like, I know, my God, anybody can make that shot. And making fun of Jesse Ventura for even questioning it. Like, really, like, I think borderline offensive, like insulting to anybody that wants to even research this stuff. It was really weird how Joe Rogan, and I'll probably bump into him in Brazil during the UFC fight for Colby Covington, but it's just weird how he just did such a 180 so quickly.
Joe Rogan has completely sold his soul for money or whatever. I have a video on my channel on the DITRH YouTube channel of him admitting it, that saying that he will lie to his mother. And
oh yes.
He says, I'm available. If you I'm available. I'll lie. Just pay
hook me up and I'll lie to my mother. Yeah.
Yeah. He is a complete and total sellout to humanity. He's a disgrace.
So do you think
will you let him know I said that?
I will. Do you think he was saying that? I mean, he probably presented it in jest, right? But it's kind of like
no. Oh, you know what? Anything coming out of Joe Rogan's mouth, you could always say it's a joke because he is a comedian. But he looked into the camera and it's like, show me the real deal of an alien crash. Yeah, he goes, I'm available. I will lie to my mother, and it was pretty genuine. And you don't have to guess whether he was joking or not.
Just look at the results.
His actions. Look at his actions. He was a big moon hoax guy, and now he's like, oh yeah, sure. I mean, the moon. How anybody can deny the 1,000 proofs that we didn't go to the moon is beyond me. I mean, just the lander itself with the dust underneath it and then the footprint, and the footprint doesn't even match the spacesuit that they have in the museum.
I know.
All of that is just such utter nonsense. And anyone that denies that has a problem with reality.
Well, I would add on that real quick, Dave, that the crime, as I put it on the show when Jay was on, the crime of losing this historical data, like the telemetry data and all this stuff, and just saying we lost it, and we even lost the capability and the technology, even though we've gone so far over the past 43 years or whatever, we do not have the technology to go back to the moon.
It's the reason we don't have the technology to go back to the moon is because you can no longer get an Atari or a Mario. What are the early game boxes? Because that's basically what they used. They don't make them anymore.
But don't you think that losing? I'm just saying, in the scheme of their explanation, to lose the telemetry data for the biggest event and accomplishment in human history is, and then we just kind of say, oh, well, things happen.
To lose the telemetry data and all of the original tapes where they actually recorded over them so they didn't have to go out and buy new tapes is a better lie than actually letting people with today's technology examine that evidence. Because if that got into anyone's hands, then it would be exposed. So they'd rather just, say, oops, and then what are you going to do? You can argue until the cows come home. You don't have any proof in your hands. But there's enough stuff out there 1,000 times over that shows that it's complete and utter nonsense.
Yeah. And speaking of the footage, of the moon landings goes, I've said this before, I think, on other shows. I don't think I've said it on the Flat Earth podcast, but how is it possible that an industry that is so exploitive and always looking for a new idea or an old idea to redo, and what I'm talking about is Hollywood, how is it that we've never gotten a moon landing movie? We had Apollo 13, which is the near disaster where they just went around the moon and back and whatever. But man stepping on the moon, we're coming up on the 50-year anniversary for that supposed event. And Hollywood, who, oh my gosh, they love a good based on a true story, right? No one's ever made a moon landing movie. Are you kidding me?
Didn't we put a guy or a monkey around the Earth, and then just months later we send in guys around the moon and back? It doesn't go like that. And then we did it 4 times or 6 times in 4 years without a hitch.
I thought the moon landing thing, when I started to question it and I came to the conclusion in my mind that what we were this is my mind at the time, what we were shown on TV was not what happened. They did not land on the moon in what they presented on television for everybody. And I had hoped and prayed that it was the secret space program. That there's all these aliens, that there's all this stuff going on. And I truly, because both sides of it, the flat Earth side, which is also sometimes tied in with the religious side, because a lot of the stuff in the Bible talks about the firmament, talks about a flat Earth, talks about a dome, all that stuff. And then you have the people from, say, Gaia and these other people that are really strong numbers of people talking about the Mars jump, talking about how we've been places and time traveling and all this stuff. Yeah, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. So there's a part of me that's hoping that all that stuff is true. Now, what I know is true is the fact that what we're being told is not true. And that's what I'm saying. The spirit of this discussion, Curious Jay had talked, and he made a perfect point. I'd like for you to repeat that about when you talked about government, politicians, and trust. Do you remember when you said that on the show?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think I just said that, all of us, almost everyone in America especially, can admit that governments can be corrupted. Anyone in the conspiracy side of things can say that elite groups and secret societies, of course, they can be corrupted and not trusted. But why is it, since I was born anyway, that we've all given science a pass and we refuse to, or many of us refuse to accept that science itself could be corrupted?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just men. It's groups of men. They're not immune to being corrupt and just like any of the other groups that we can accept being corrupt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say, too, that that's probably the basis of a lot of why wrestlers are conspiracy theorists, because it's not a business or a profession of trust. You're taught really not to trust anything you hear, nothing that you see. So that would be my answer to that. Again, I think that's really the foundation for why there's so much questioning, because there's so much shady behavior, which isn't.
Yeah, you guys work in a business that is really based on someone is working you at all points. Yeah, whether it's your friend in the dressing room or the promoter or whoever. I mean, someone's always got an agenda and giving up an official story instead. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So looking at this, and there's all these other theories out there we discussed on that show too, Curious Jay, when you were on, about also hollow earth, energy walls. We have researched and looked into and continue the Mandela effect and CERN. It's another thing too. Nobody talks about CERN with this flat earth theory. Do you think they have anything to do with what's going on, since they're the most famous science organization in the world right now?
Yeah, Dave, what's your thoughts on CERN as it relates to flat earth?
CERN on a ball, CERN on a flat earth, it's the same thing, except that we can't live on a ball, of course. I'm not the person to ask about CERN. I've listened to a lot of Anthony Patch. I've listened to a lot of people look at it. They're not looking for a little particle. They're using it to break into other dimensions or to open doorways, stuff that's beyond my ability to really comment on it intelligently.
I want to just comment on what you said, Dave, that I wish more people would do what you just did. So many people out there they're afraid of saying they don't know something.
Yeah.
They're afraid of saying they all want to, and that's what I think happens a lot in media and these people. I see it all the time in fitness, and I saw it in wrestling. People just BS their way, and if they act, because people are so weak-minded, and they follow anybody that seems to know more or acts like they know more, and that's what they do. If you have the confidence to make it sound like you know what you're talking about, people will listen to you. And that's very dishonest, and I think that's a lot of the problem in today's society and world is, people are just, too scared and insecure to say, man, I don't know about that. I don't know anything about that. I'll get back to you. I'll look into it.
Go ahead, Jay.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think I mentioned it on the show the other night, like when they asked me about something, one of the guys asked me something that I didn't have the answer to, and I said, I don't know for sure. I don't know. I've heard the theories, but I don't know. And it brings to mind the quote that I had read recently where, I'd rather live in a world where some questions can't be answered than to live in a world where certain answers can't be questioned. That's how I feel, man. If you don't know, say you don't know, and let's keep digging.
Following announcement. has been paid for by
The Flat Earth Podcast.
The Flat Earth Conference 2017 takes place this November from Raleigh, North Carolina. Tickets are sold out right now, but visit their website and get on the waiting list.
Or just head down. There's lots of people heading down to an adjacent hotel where they'll be live streaming in an auditorium and lots of outside stuff happening. A big Flat Earth hangout.
And if you want to contribute to the massive Flat Earth billboard that's going up down in Raleigh, North Carolina, head over to the website, flatearthpodcast.com, click on the link that sends you over to the billboard campaign.
The billboard is 14 feet tall by 48 feet wide. It'll be the biggest Flat Earth billboard to date. It'll be running for a month before the conference and ending the Sunday after the conference.
Head over to fe2017.com now.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
And if you are coming down to the Flat Earth Conference in November, on Wednesday, the day before, we're going to be kicking off the conference with a gathering at the Flat Earth Billboard, which is just 2.5 miles from the conference center. We're going to have hundreds of people there. We're going to have a drone up filming us. We're going to be live streaming it to all of the different media across the plane, and we'll be interviewing people during it that'll be going out over the live stream. Be part of that. You don't even have to have a ticket to the show. Just join us and listen for more information here on the Flat Earth Podcast.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
Yeah, so just getting back, we touched on 9/11 earlier, and you're talking about CERN. A lot of people don't know what CERN is, and then some that do know that it's this one in Switzerland that's 17 miles and around or whatever it is. But a lot of people don't know that there's particle colliders, if that's what they really are, all over the place. There's some around me.
There's a huge one in Texas.
Yeah, there's one in Long Island, which is, I forget the name of it off the top of my head. Maybe it'll come to me. And if you look at it on Google Earth and you line up the wheelhouse or whatever it is, it definitely has an angle that it points. And you draw a line from its center through its lens, if you will, or whatever the heck that is, towards New York City. It splices everything, and the first building that it hits is the World Trade Towers.
Shut up.
It goes between everything, and it's directly pointed at the World Trade Towers.
Yeah, very interesting, because there's a lot of symbolism, especially with CERN, and if you don't believe me, look up the Gothard Tunnel opening ceremony if you want to see some crazy, scary symbolism.
That's insane. It's crazy.
That's unbelievable.
I mean, that alone, the tunnel, the opening of that tunnel was crazy. Anybody that can see that and doesn't realize that some
messed up stuff is going on.
I was going to say some fucked up shit.
I know, right?
I don't know if we can say that on the podcast.
Oh, I didn't know.
Hold on, let me look at the bylaws.
I'll have to. The bylaws. What are our bylaws?
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay. Yeah. That tunnel ceremony opening is my ace in the hole. If I'm talking to someone who cannot connect the dots with science being evil. If someone can't accept that they're corruptible or that they could be bad guys, let's say, even involved in science, I say, here, check out this video real quick. You need to see this.
Maybe this is just a wild thought. I have absolutely no proof. Maybe they're using these things to get out of our flat Earth realm, to be able to go to other parts of this flat Earth. Maybe we are contained behind and maybe the barrier
That's how you break the barrier.
That's how you break through the barrier. Hillary Clinton with her speech, with the glass dome, that one day we're going to crack through it very soon. And
yeah, I want to ask you. Actually, I was just thinking about it. You've been my biggest influence, Jay, over the past year or two with two of the biggest theories out there that have been, for one reason or another, have been on the forefront. That was Mandela effect and now flat Earth. I have a question for you. So I'm interviewing you guys now. I have a question for you, because how do you see, if at all, because you were putting out some great videos on Mandela effect, which has some legs, and also as far as the Earth, and the shape of the Earth, you're putting out great points on that. How do you think these things? I mean, when you're on Raven's thing, and I'm just going to sidebar to you, Dave, real quick. When you're on Raven's podcast, he was asking you repeatedly, like, then what? I mean, then what is it? Is there a wall? Is it an infinite plane or whatever? You kept saying, I don't know. I just know this. Yeah, people expect you to know everything, Jay. So, or me or Dave. And the question really about the Mandela effect and flat Earth is, like, can they coexist with each other?
I think I came across that with the Mandela effect stuff really early in my flat Earth research. And I'm still like, I still say about Mandela effect, dude, I don't know. I mean, there's something to it, but I don't know what it is.
I say they're just messing with our ability to remember. We do have short attention spans. Just like in that letter, Kevin, the teacher, pointed out that in one generation, they went from knowing the earth is flat to teaching the earth is round. I believe that there were other times where people, when they start learning too much, they just reset history. I don't think we know anything beyond 200 years ago. You can't trust anything, and the history that we're told is by the people that are controlling us now. They told us that people had chisels and hammers and built pyramids, which is utter nonsense. So I think between your show, Stevie, and the Flat Earth podcast, that we can wake up enough people for them to really push the reset button and call us all.
Yeah, I think it's more of yeah. I really think it's more of like when you say people are very resistant to absolute terms like wake them up, even though we know what it means. I think it's more of just like Jay had said, and we always say, don't believe us. Go out and find out for yourself. Just promise us that you'll do well. Anymore, you can't even do a Google search or a YouTube search because all my videos, for some reason, are now getting the yellow dollar sign because I started uploading the Conspiracy Horseman podcast to YouTube. So YouTube is now sort of like, I said this on the show, people think Mark of the Beast is going to be a number on your hand or whatever, or anything. But if they're conditioning you that if you put up questionable content or stuff that doesn't fall in line with what you're allowed to believe, you're not going to make any money. And that's happening to a lot of YouTubers right now. So that's, that's disappointing, but a lot of people will fall in line and go back to their makeup videos or whatever else they have to do. That's in a safe space for YouTube to not flag the videos.
Yeah. I honestly think, sadly enough, that our days of putting up these types of videos on YouTube are probably numbered.
It's already happening, Jay. They're stopping so much content. And then if you're just go to a regular computer, search on your computer for Flat Earth or 9/11 or whatever, and see what comes up. It's a lot less than it used to, but then try it from somebody's computer that never looked into a conspiracy ever, and you get served almost nothing. It's all mainstream narrative stuff.
Yeah, all the related videos will usually be, I'll do that experiment, as a matter of fact, maybe I'll record a screencast on it, but, if you go to somebody who doesn't have it, I've been told that the related videos will all mostly be what debunks it or marginalizes.
They don't care what we know because we already know. They just care about other people not knowing.
Yes, and in fact, as you were saying that, Dave, I realized that the browser that I had open is on a brand new computer, and it's a browser that I have never searched on before. In fact, it's auto set to, I believe, like Yahoo instead of Google, right? So the first time ever, I typed Flat Earth in on this browser as you were saying that. And of course, the first thing is the Wikipedia entry, and then the Flat Earth Society, and then 3 articles after that about Flat Earth truthers. Are they being serious? Like you're right. There's nothing, there's no ODD video popping up on here. There's no Eric Dubay page or anything. It's all the stuff that you don't want the person you just mentioned this to see when they first pull it up.
They're very effective. If somebody's looking at Flat Earth for the first time, did what you did, got those results, they would look at the Wikipedia, they would go to the Flat Earth Society, and then they'd just say, this is nonsense. I'm never going to look at it again, no matter what anyone else ever says to me.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I wanted to read a quote. I think I sent both of this to you a couple days ago, and it's something that I wish I would have had in my hand whenever we were doing the Conspiracy Horseman podcast, but I stumbled upon it a few hours after that. Great quote. I found this on David Ray's Facebook page, but the quote is this: however perfect the Copernican model may appear in our own estimation, And however simply and satisfactorily the Newtonian hypothesis may seem to us to account for all celestial phenomenon, yet we are here compelled to admit the astounding truth. If our premises be disputed and our facts be challenged, the whole range of astronomy does not contain one proof of its own accuracy. And that is a quote from Robert Woodhouse, professor of astronomy at Cambridge.
That's what I always say to people that are debating flat Earth. I say, can you show me one proof that we live on a spinning ball? And nobody has ever been able to come back.
Well, except for Raven's awesome proof there with the
skydivers.
Every single skydiver has always said they see the curve of the Earth.
He sends me a picture of the skydivers where it's at an angle, and I just looked at it, put a straight line on it, and the horizon's perfectly flat.
I've known Raven for, since almost the beginning of my career, over 26 years ago. And I will say this, knowing him, it depends. Like, if he gets into a situation like that, and when you said he kept slamming you with, like, instead of one question at a time, 15, that's him just controlling the conversation.
It's what everyone does when they get into that situation. Their ego or their subconscious will throw out stuff because they realize deep down inside that their paradigm is going to be destroyed, and they're not ready for that emotional pain. You know, our minds will do anything to avoid emotional pain or something that'll destroy what we think makes us feel safe.
True. And also, he put through a little humor in there, and he has Busby there for comic relief. And it would have just been probably better if it was just you and him having kind of a debate. Maybe if he prepared with the points he wanted to do, and something like that, I believe, kind of has to be, in retrospect, of 2020's hindsight. But you have to kind of approach it in categories and let it breathe. And you can't, that's how I approach when I talk to people about conspiracies and stuff. I always end with a question. And I know you guys do that too. I don't ever make any the derivative statements or absolutes. I just ask them a question. And most times that's how it was done to me, because I'm very spiteful. I will not.
Stevie, let me ask you a question. If you and I were going to have a flat Earth versus globe Earth debate, do you think you could prepare for it? You're taking the globe side.
No.
Okay. So what are you saying in real words? What are you saying?
No, I'm saying what's easier to digest. Now, there's a saying too. Everybody wants to be first to be second, because nobody wants to look stupid. Did you ever hear that saying? So I know it's a little, and I'll be quite blunt with you. It's a little intimidating and scary to put something like that out there. It's still kind of back when 9/11, it was dangerous to even say that it wasn't the official government story. We're kind of past that now, and now everybody kind of marginalizes flat Earth, or even the opposite. When people say there's a secret space program or we didn't go to the moon, people marginalize that. I would say that I approach it this way. I know that whatever shape the Earth is, I know that whatever is believed or disbelieved, that they are hiding something or they're lying to us about it. I'm talking about NASA and government, whoever's displaying these images, whoever is telling us the moon landing story. I think that's the foundation that a lot of people would embrace more, and then open up to that discussion from there. The problem is that I don't know what it's going to take, and you probably ask yourselves this every day, what's it going to take, or what that event is going to look like when people finally do really question the narrative. And then what's going to happen after that? Because in the 24-hour news cycle, we're in this situation, like you said. Now people have no attention span. The next day, everybody gives up and goes back to their lives. It's a really,
That's what happens. That's what happens with all of the other conspiracies. Not flat Earth. When you wake up to flat Earth, you can't get away from it. You can't, because it affects you every moment of every day, everywhere you are, without exception, ever. There's nothing else that affects you that amount. So once you see the truth, what I was trying to say before was there's really no really good flat Earth debates because the glober, if they prepare, they realize the Earth is flat. Or if you do the debate and they actually listen and they put their egos down, they'll become a flat earther. But there, something like what the conversation with Raven, he refused to listen and he was fighting for his belief. I'm not fighting for my belief. I'm fighting for the truth and looking at the evidence. I would be thrilled if somebody could show me proof we live on a ball. But I just don't believe it's out there. But I'm willing to look, and I don't care if the earth is flat or round. I just want to look at the evidence. And all of the evidence points to not round, not a ball.
I wanted to mention something that I didn't get to say on the Conspiracy Horseman podcast of the night that has to do with the Siop theory. Because you mentioned earlier, Stevie, when you said, well, whether it's NASA is faking all this stuff because they've got a real different space program going on, or they're faking it all because of the flat Earth to hide the shape of the Earth or whatever, that they're definitely lying, right? Well, I was kind of thinking about after our podcast interview the other day, I was kind of thinking about that, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, you kind of have to weigh those two. Which one is it that they're lying? What's their motivation for lying? It's got to be one of these, right? And I thought to myself, if you were doing a psyop, like flat Earth, there are no signs of a psyop. In other words, if you're CIA or whatever, and you want to discredit the truth movement, and you want to put this flat Earth thing out there, like so many people accuse flat Earth of being, how would you do it? Well, you would plant
a couple of the astronauts, liars. That's what Raven said.
Yeah, which I think that part is ludicrous. That's just insane. I think what you would do is you would plant some government agents or some people to make the claims, like, hey, guess what? I discovered that the Earth was flat, and I worked for such and such, and but the flat Earth research doesn't have any of that. The points that lead you to understanding that the globe is a lie, it's not something that could be planted. Like, they didn't go back and falsify the Ares failure experiment or the Michelson-Morley experiment and then hide them. Like, they didn't create them 2 years ago and hide them and say, let's plant this for the flat earthers to find. Like, it's almost impossible. However, when you look at the secret space stuff and where all of that knowledge comes from, it's almost always a whistleblower. And I think to myself, well, that actually could be very easily psyoped.
There's so much information today that it will make your head spin one way or the other. I just feel like going back to that, it's not me avoiding the conclusion that the Earth is flat, the Earth is a globe, or whatever it is. It's more of me. It's easier to digest, and it's actually got a lot more credibility across the line because, like you said, we know the government lies. They steal our tax dollars. Politicians lie. All these other people throughout our institutionalized places are lying. Even in stories that we hear in education and history, the history of the way the country was founded, the history of Columbus, the history of all this stuff has already been exposed as not being true, but the history books has not been changed. That's the really frustrating part. But when you present that you're being lied to and people know that, or you present it that, hey, NASA just advertised after 43 years that they're going to have the first real images from space in 72. What happened to the ones in between? What are those? And then just walk away from the person, and let them leave them their own devices. That's where, like, when people figure out they're being lied to, that's great. And then they can go out on their own, and then it can be revisited. This is my approach, rather than just saying, this is the way it is, and this is the way it is. And as true as it might be, or as much as I love your passion, Dave, they will automatically, because they're insecure and they don't know, 99% of them will go, screw flat Earth. I'm never paying attention to that because, my God, that guy just, blew my mind. That's really what you're doing. They're blowing their mind. You're cracking the dome or whatever. You're lowering their ice wall or energy wall, whatever pun you want to use. But people at their core are insecure and don't want to feel stupid. But if you plant the seed, which that's all I ever do. I'm just, I'm kind of throwing it out there. My approach is not wishy-washy. I still don't have a conclusion. Now, the conclusion is further from the narrative heading in a direction, but you haven't gotten there. But that's the beauty of talking to you guys. This is exciting. I'm going to keep going.
Stevie, ready? You have 3 seconds. Gun to your head. Flat around. 2, 1.
Boom.
Boom.
That's
You're
okay. I had a
dead.
good run.
Yeah. No, I definitely respect Stevie's stance. I understand. I get it. Let me ask you this. This will give us a roundabout way of seeing where you are. I think I know the answer. On a confidence level, 1 through 10, 10 being the most confident and number 1 being obviously not at all. What is your confidence in NASA at this point?
0.
All right. Now let me ask you this. From your research and what you've learned about all this, not speaking about flat Earth, but what is your confidence level in the heliocentric model as we were taught?
I'd probably say around a 3. I'm being very generous.
All right. There we go, folks.
I mean, that's the evidence is there. I only based in that, and that's where I leave. Before like I said, I don't like to speculate. I just know what I know. To be
So
true.
what's your confidence level that the Earth is flat?
Uh,
Come on. Anyway,
God.
remember, you were generous with the heliocentric model.
The funny part is that the predictive programming of star blazers from back in the 80s of the floating continent sort of put me over the edge. There's another pun. It's more so than what they're showing us with globe Earth. How's that?
It's amazing how people are so afraid to put a number there. I get it.
But most people will come out and say, no, and they won't openly. Jay will tell you, he's known me. I'm a very, very transparent person. It's a fucking scary thing.
Jay, I don't know if you can see the chat. He just texted me 10.
I did. Actually, I left out a 0. How's that?
He said, shh, it's 10.
It's
right?
10. Don't tell anybody.
Kayfabe, brother. Yeah. No, I completely respect Stevie's stance on this. I do, especially, being in an industry that is covered sometimes by the media. And if it gets picked up, what does that mean? You know what I mean? If that were to become a story, what does that mean for you? I get it, man.
But you know what? I think a lot of that fear has been taken away with the Kyrie Irving and the Shaq and, and Tequila or whatever her name is. Even though they came out and then they backed off, it's now not a big deal if you hear that someone says the Earth is flat. B.O.B. is out there. There's other people. David Avocado Wolf made a great presentation. A lot of people know who he is, a lot don't. But I think more and more bigger and bigger people are coming out. And I just encourage anyone that has any kind of a name that if you're able to come out and at least raise questions, instead of saying the Earth is flat, say, here, we can see Canigou, if I'm pronouncing that right, Peak from Malousia, France, which is 165 miles away. It should be 3.5 miles under the curve or whatever the number is. It's right around that. And it's how can we possibly see that? It's impossible on a ball. And you don't have to say anything else. Impossible.
You know what we need to do, going back to something that was brought up earlier, we need to dig up, see if there's a PDF online for the blueprints, the plan for the CERN 17-mile deal. Did they factor in curvature or not?
It's a good question.
Right. Yeah.
When they built the 17-mile tunnel,
There's tunnels that to me prove flat Earth because the tunnel would have to keep going down after 10 miles. If it was 50 feet under the Earth, it would pop out.
Yeah.
I think that the truest statement, no matter what we're talking about with flat Earth, 9/11, whatever, I hate using the word conspiracy. I would just say whatever things are out there that need to be looked at and questioned, they need to be looked at and questioned. That's it. There's so much out there that is just being, put to us in a way that you have to follow up and you have to do your own research, and then you have to do some more because the research you find might not be, accurate. So you almost have to double check, get the second, third, fourth, sixth, seventh opinion from your resources to see, and then kind of come up with your own thing. Don't let someone tell you. Don't let the three of us tell you anything, or the conspiracy horseman, or anybody else. Do it yourself. Tell us these guys are full of crap. I'm going to go check this out.
Hey, I want to give a shout out to two videos that came out, and I want to know if you guys saw it. Did you see D Marble, where he called 3 people?
No.
Well, no, he called 2 friends. One that was in England, He FaceTimed.
Oh,
with him.
yes.
And then one where the guy was in Australia, and D Marble was in Pacific Northwest, and the sun was above him, and they could all see the sun also. And then he showed in his most recent video where he got a globe and a distant sun, shining on it, where half the globe was lit, and there's no way that
all three locations
could see at the same time. Then he took a flat Earth map and showed a localized light on it, and it worked perfectly.
Yeah,
that was a really, really fascinating video. He did a great job with that.
That was awesome. I'm so glad you remembered to bring that up, because I think I saw it before last episode and wanted to talk about that, Dave. It was great.
Yeah, we'll link that in on the Facebook page. So make sure you go there, like the page, and give us a good review on iTunes now that the trolls are there.
Yeah, right. In closing up, I want to thank Stevie for joining us, of course, and welcome him to come back anytime he wants, but especially when he's ready to make that step, when he's ready to put his name down in the Flat Earth logbook, right? You're more than welcome to come do it on the show, Stevie.
I will do that. You will be the first.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's redundant. He already did it.
Yeah. In a roundabout way. But when he's ready to actually get the tattoo, you know what I mean?
I'm starting to see why Dave and Raven got along so great.
Yeah. It's awesome. Cool, man. Well, Dave, you got anything you want to add? And before we roll off?
I've got nothing.
Nothing. Stevie, where can everybody find you, brother?
Well, I don't know if they want to find me now that they think I'm crazy, but they can go to StevieRichardsFitness.com for all the fitness stuff that I do. Patreon.com/Stevie Richards. Actually, for as little as $5 a month, you get full workout programs and downloadable HD video workouts that you can keep forever. And, it's pretty much the most affordable deal out there. I also have a tech channel. You look up Stevie Richards. Well, you might not be able to find it. Now they have a bunch of yellow dollar signs. But if you look up Stevie Richards tech reviews, you'll find my channel. I do a bunch of different stuff. And it's I just try to have fun and educate myself and educate others in everything I do.
We'll link all that under this episode on the Facebook page if anybody wants those links.
Cool.
Definitely.
Then you can come troll me at Stevie Richards Fitness on Facebook.
Yeah, there you go. All right, folks, we're gonna ride off into the sunset once again. If you download this podcast from iTunes and you love listening to the show, make sure you leave us a good review on there so we can suppress those globers that have been attacking us on there. We will catch you next week. Thanks a lot for joining us.